You asked, we listened, we got a bunch of questions from you guys, and I'm going to do my very best to answer.
Awesome. Well, let's get right to it. Is there a gut cleanse, detox, or fast to help maximize gut health?
Wow, there's a lot that you can do for gut health.
Which should I do first? A dry sauna at 180 degrees, followed by a cold plunge at 50 degrees, or the other way around?
The answer is...
Any advice for women entering perimenopause?
There's a whole reason why perimenopause has severe symptoms.
What's the best way to lower blood pressure naturally?
Make sure, first of all, that you're not...
I have Crohn's disease. Is there a way to fight this naturally?
We see a lot of this in our clinic system. The first thing they do is... I end every podcast the same way, and there's no right or wrong answer to this question, but what does it mean to you to be an ultimate human?
Being as supremely healthy as you could possibly be.
To actualize my potential.
It's such a feeling that becomes so good and so addicting that it just makes everything in your life better.
Understanding and thinking about the interconnectedness of our body and our environment is a real key to happiness.
To be able to access joy, creativity, and to access love.
I want to stay in my possible best shape ever.
Being the best in like what you do in your field.
Living the birthright that we all have to be vital.
The ultimate human is a person who's connected to others.
Love God, love people, make Earth a heavenly place.
The ability to wake up every day with a new question that needs an answer to.
Being the ultimate human being is serving and lifting others.
It has now given me the ability and confidence that I can actually do some things that can actually prolong my life.
Hi, babe.
Hey, babe.
Welcome back to the Ultimate Human Podcast. So this is our podcast short, and Sage and I are out here in LA, and we got a bunch of questions from you guys. So you asked, we listened. So Sage is going to run through the top 16 most commonly asked questions, and I'm going to do my very best to answer. Please remember that I am not a doctor. I am not licensed to practice medicine. None of this advice should be substitute for you seeking the advice of a certified or licensed medical professional. We have licensed medical professionals at 10X Health. If you don't have a doctor or a functional medicine physician of your own, but otherwise, please run this by the advice of a licensed doctor.
That's great advice, hon.
Welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we do. We have a lot of questions.
Yeah, we got a lot of great questions. I love these. These are my favorite shorts because they're fast, they're informative, and then I know that our audience always has questions, and we like to let them have a chance to ask, and we'll listen and respond the best that we can.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's get right to it. So first question is there a gut cleanse, detox, or fast to help maximize gut health?
Wow, there's a lot that you can do for gut health. You know, gut health is not a singular approach. You know, there's a gut biome testing, there's motility testing. You know, one of the reasons why I recommend that everybody get that genetic test is to actually look at deficiencies that might lead to gut motility.
Agreed.
Very often people have gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, irritability, cramping, all of these compounding symptoms in their gut not related to what they're eating. Very often they've done a course of antibiotics and they destroyed their gut flora, and so they need to repopulate the gut and seal the gut. Remember, there's only a single cell layer separating us from our outside world. Our intestinal tract is actually outside of our body. It's kind of hard to believe, but the side of your cheek is actually contiguous with the inside of your colon. And so this is meant to be outside of the body. So luckily, we actually have a gut challenge. It's completely free. It's coming up in October, so certainly tune in to the gut challenge. What I would say in general is that you can use binders, activated charcoal, silica clays, and other binders in the gut to help sop up some of the histamines if you have regular cramping. But it's really good to get a full gut biome test, and we're going to take a deep dive into this in October.
I like that. I know that my gut is, I know when I'm off, if I haven't taken my vitamins, it activates that MTR.
And you're very regular when you do?
Yeah.
Take your vitamins.
Exactly. Okay, someone asked, I've been doing the 30-30-30 for about a month, and I haven't lost any weight. I guess that would be a two-part question. Maybe explain 30-30-30 and what that is. And and then why they haven't maybe lost any weight and what could they be doing wrong.
So 30-30-30 is 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking, followed by 30 minutes of steady state cardiovascular exercise. So 3 things you can do. Watch your macros. Remember that caloric reduction is what leads to weight loss. Not just caloric reduction, but reducing the right calories. I don't believe that a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. So very often if we can get rid of the whites, white flour, white rice, white bread, white pasta, white potatoes, and high glycemic sugars, things that raise your blood sugar very quickly. The obvious cookies, pastries, pies, brownies, things like that.
All the good stuff.
But you can also narrow your feeding window. So I would recommend that you don't do the 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking. You do the perfect aminos, which is the blend of 8 essential amino acids. It doesn't break a fast. It actually is only a single calorie, and still continue to do your steady state cardiovascular exercise. Steady state cardio is great for weight loss. It's not hard on your joints, and it's easy to incorporate into your day. You don't need any fancy equipment. You can even do it by walking, preferably outside. But let's incorporate breath work. Let's make sure that you're sleeping. Believe it or not, lack of sleep is actually tied to weight gain. Remember, the body detoxifies, repairs, eliminates waste, and regenerates at night in deep sleep. That's when the brain detoxifies. So to get your energy back and to really get on track for weight loss, focus on your sleep, reduce high glycemic carbohydrates, drop the 30 grams of protein in the morning, and switch it for perfect aminos, which is not going to break your fast.
Explain steady state cardio for people that don't understand that.
So steady state cardiovascular exercise is low heart rate cardio. You should be able to hold a conversation, like speak on the phone. You should be able to read a Kindle. It's not where you're panting and intensely sweating. This is raising your heart rate for a prolonged period of time. I would do minimum of 30 minutes of steady state cardiovascular exercise in the morning. Don't eat within 2 hours of bedtime, and see if those subtle changes shift the picture of your weight loss.
People, when I talk to people about it, if they just cannot get it done in the morning, what is your recommendation for people that are looking to lose weight, but they just, again, can't do 30-30-30?
Well, exercise is exercise. It's an interesting study looking at taking 45 minutes of exercise and breaking it into 3 15-minute segments throughout the day, and it was the same benefit. If I recall, the outcomes of the conclusion of this study was actually a better reduction in their overall sugar profile, meaning their hemoglobin A1C, the 3-month average of their blood sugar, and it had a better response to insulin. Don't recall the specifics on weight loss directly, but the study said that if you were to do 15 minutes of walking after each meal, so 3 meals a day, 3 15-minute sessions, you actually had better outcomes than doing 1 45-minute session. I call it snacking on exercise. Right? I mean, we can weave it in any time during the day. We did a couple of podcasts today. We did Access Hollywood. We were kind of running all over town. Came home. We took a short little nap. But I'm always trying to then get outside, do some breath work, touch the surface of the earth, let the sunlight hit my skin. Always trying to add activity in between, points of time where you're a little bit sedentary.
When I'm at home, I like throwing on my rollerblades and take my...
She is the rollerblade queen. You really are.
It's like brought it back from the 90s.
Yeah, you go disco queen on those things.
Yeah, but I realized if I have my headphones in, I can, kind of sprint on my rollerblades and still do a phone call and knock stuff out.
Exercise like that, boxing, hitting pads, things that people can do where they don't actually realize they're pushing their bodies that hard. Those are great forms of exercise. Tennis, paddleball, those things where you're actually enjoying the exercise and you're not just doing it for the sake of doing it. That's why I say, hey, load a podcast in the morning or something educational that can feed your mind. Jump on your treadmill and just walk for 30 minutes.
Go dancing.
Game changer.
I like
or
to
go dancing.
Okay. Any advice for women entering perimenopause? Super fun time of life. This woman asked, my doctor wants me to start on a bunch of drugs. What is your advice there?
So I don't know what drugs her doctor's going to want her to start on, but there's a whole reason why perimenopause has severe symptoms and sometimes is asymptomatic, meaning they actually don't have any symptoms at all. And Dr. Sarda, our clinic director, is a board-certified OBGYN. I think one of the best functional medicine OBGYNs in the country. So if you can get an appointment with her to 10X Health, I would highly recommend that. There's no charge for her time, only for the testing. But vitamin D3 deficiency is big in perimenopause. So is a zinc deficiency and the necessity for omega-3 fatty acids. Very often when our fatty acid ratio gets out of whack, the omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acid ratio Americans are 45-1. They really should be about 1-1. So look for a good EPA, DHA, omega-3 supplement. Make sure that you have adequate levels of vitamin D3. The usual recommendation is 5,000 IUs daily with some vitamin K2. We have that supplement. You can also get that supplement through lots of other vendors. There's some great supplement manufacturers out there that make a great form of vitamin D3. Make sure that it also has K2. Believe it or not, exercise is known to reduce symptoms, and so is sleep deprivation linked to increase symptoms. The final thing I would recommend is that you get a full hormone profile, looking at specifically luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. These help regulate a woman's menstrual cycle. Look at your SHBG, sex hormone binding globulin. This can interrupt the conversion of certain hormones, namely testosterone, into the free form of testosterone. And then you want to look at DHEA levels, which are easy to look at on a blood test, vitamin D3 levels, which are very easy to also look on a blood test, and a full hormone profile. Very often, Dr. Sartor will get women through this without hormones. The other thing I would really recommend is that you're taking a good methylated multivitamin. Mm-hmm. You know, symptoms are exacerbated during perimenopause from nutrient deficiencies, and the main nutrient deficiencies are the omega-3s and vitamin D3.
I don't think women should be scared of taking hormones, though, either, because if you find the right functional medicine doctor, they can really, you know, take that hormone profile and really dial it in and put you on the right form.
Yeah, a lot of the negative research on hormone supplementation came from the early years when they were supplementing high amounts of a single hormone. We know now that hormonal levels in women especially are not as important as hormonal ratios. The ratio of hormones to one another is more important than the actual level of a hormone. For example, when a woman's normally menstruating, it's normal for her estrogen to be in the 400s. It's normal for it to be in the teens. So who's to say that any number in between is high or low? You have to look at where she is in her cycle, follicular, ovulation, or luteal, and you have to look at where estrogen lies in relationship to the other hormones. So a really good OBGYN or certified hormone doctor can actually supplement with the full complement of hormones, which bears significantly less risk than trying to rifle shot hormones. Also, if you are going to get a hormone test, I would really recommend doing the Dutch test. This is a more accurate way of analyzing the full cycle on a female. Very often a blood test, if you went to LabCorp or Quest, it's a snapshot in time of where your hormones were at that exact moment. And it may not be an accurate picture like it is in a man, it may not be an accurate picture of your cycle. When hormones are cycling in the right ratio, you don't have problems. When they cycle out of ratio is when you start to have really significant issues. And the Dutch test is excellent. It's a urine test. It's very easy to do. You send the results in and you get a full picture of how that woman is moving from cycle to cycle. Remember, even in menopause, women still have a cycle. It's just the amplitude of it is very, very low.
I actually also started following a woman named Dr. Mary Claire, I think it is, and she is really shedding a lot of really good light on menopause and all the symptoms. Amazing. And to help us understand, because there's just a lot of misinformation out there.
Maybe we should put a link to her in the show notes. So
yeah,
I'll let my team know. We'll put a link to her in the show notes.
Okay, next question. I have Crohn's disease. Is there a way to fight this naturally?
So Crohn's disease, you know, we see a lot of this in our clinic system. So I'll tell you how our clinical team approaches it. The first thing they do is try to get the histamines, the inflammatory factors, out of the gut. One of the best supplements that I've seen that our clinical team has used is a supplement called Toxi Prevent. You actually have to order it out of Europe, order the lower GI formula. I've seen with my own eyes miracles in the patients treated with this supplement. Again, I'm not a doctor, so this is not medical advice, but the Toxi Prevent is a binder, so it actually absorbs the histamines in the gut and reduces the flare-ups. And then we have to go about healing and sealing the gut. One of the things that our clinical team does on a regular basis is put people onto BPC, Body Protection Compound 157, BPC 157, which is a gastric pentadecapeptide. It's an amino acid peptide that helps to seal the gut. Also, colostrum can be very good and soothing to the gut. So if you actually have Crohn's disease, you know, reducing the histamines, you know, in the gut using a healthy binder, looking at healing and sealing the gut with peptides like BPC 157, and then also looking at things like colostrum as a way to actually soothe the gut and allow that lining to repair.
And we have seen a lot of good turnarounds from that. Okay, which should I do first? A dry sauna at 180 degrees, followed by a cold plunge at 50 degrees, or the other way around? I know my answer on that.
So the answer is always end on cold. If you can, always end on cold. So if you start with a dry sauna, get into the cold plunge, then make the cold plunge the last thing you do. Very often people do contrast therapy where they go back and forth, which is great. It's like vascular exercise. We don't think of our vascular system as actually being muscle, but it is. Arteries are smooth muscle. You know, there's 3 types of muscle in the body. There's cardiac muscle just in the heart. There's skeletal muscle, which we have, which everybody can see. And then there's smooth muscle, which is the muscle in our arteries. And remember that our arteries actually expand and contract. So cold and hot contrast, and about 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit down to 50 degrees Fahrenheit is about the extreme temperature differentiation that you want. Very, very elevated temperatures. I've seen things on Instagram where people are going into 220 degree saunas. I think that that is dangerous and highly ill-advised. Remember, your brain is only this far inside the surface of your skull. It's not good to bake it, and it's not good to freeze it. And when it goes through such a rapid change in temperatures, you can actually fracture the cell wall. Our cell walls and cell membranes are phospholipid bilayers. They're actually fat bilayers. So extreme temperature variance, 160 to 180 to 50 degrees is great, but I know that some people go much higher temperatures in the 200s, and then they get in 35, 37 degree water. It's just too much of a temperature change for them.
No, that sounds terrible.
But to answer your question, always end on cold.
Okay. And honestly, it makes it easier for me to warm up a bit and then get in the cold plunge.
Yeah, for some reason doesn't.
I don't know if it's because I run cold to begin with, so it's harder for me to go from like a cold body to cold body or to cold water.
Cold body to colder body.
But if I'm warmer, then I can get in much easier, and I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
Instead of being miserable. The second part to that question is, does it matter if I exercise before or after doing that?
So the rule of thumb is you don't want to cold plunge within about 45 minutes of exercise. So you should cold plunge prior to exercise if possible. That's the optimal time to do it. If you think about what the human body is doing naturally when you exercise, let's say you do a big squat workout and you tear a bunch of quad muscle. What's the body going to do? It's going to send more blood flow to that area, more oxygen to those muscles. It's going to send more amino acids to those muscles. It's going to strip out something called creatinine. It's going to try to get these inflammatory products out of the muscle, the byproducts of muscle breakdown. So why would we want to shut that process down? If anything, you want to get hyperthermic, high temperatures after exercise, and you want to get hypothermic, low temperatures prior to exercise.
Okay. Is it okay to work out fasted in the morning? I feel like this should have gone earlier. Is it bad to deplete glycogen stores when I work out fasted? And it says I'm taking 2 perfect amino scoops before I work out.
So you're doing the right thing. I mean, if you're taking the perfect aminos, number 1, it's not breaking your fast. And number 2, it's putting the right complement of the full spectrum of amino acids into the blood. And that's the key, right? When you actually have these 8 amino acids that are essential amino acids, one is conditionally essential, but the 9th one, but there are 8 amino acids that are essential, meaning the body needs to get them from diet or supplementation. We can't make them on our own. The liver cannot create these enzymes or these amino acids. Then you take that prior to exercise. It will not break your fast. It will put amino acids into the blood, which are the building blocks of proteins. So you will not muscle waste if you're doing that. So you're doing the right thing. You're exercising fasted and taking perfect aminos.
Is Celsius, the drink, safe to drink? I heard you talk about one of the toxic ingredients.
So I got way over my skis on the on the Celsius drink. You know, I took a deep dive into their ingredients. They are generally regarded as safe. They meet the FDA GRAS guidelines, so they're all generally regarded as safe. They actually make the ingredient from fermentation. I thought that it actually came from bacterial fermentation from sewage, which is the history of some of those nutrients. I actually had a direct talk with the scientific team at Celsius, so Celsius is safe. you can survive. You can drink Celsius. Like any energy drink, it's the overconsumption that you should be worried about. But yes, Celsius Energy is safe, and I've since retracted those videos from everywhere I can find them in the public domain.
Okay. I'm currently working the third shift, midnight to 8 a.m., and trying to have a quote-unquote normal life. That is not easy. Does it matter when I eat and sleep on my days off? Should I be taking any supplements to help with this schedule?
So since your sleep is shifting, try, if possible, to keep your digestion within as much of a window as you can control. So take the waking time post-shift, and try to match that to the time when you're eating, when you're not on that night shift. So one of the things that I try to do when I travel and I switch time zones is I try to preserve my sleeping window, meaning during the hours that I'm normally sleeping, I try not to eat. So if on the East Coast, you're sleeping from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m., you go to London and the time zone is shifted 6 hours, don't eat between 6 a.m. and noon. So on night shifts, you can't quite get to the exact time frame, but what I would do is I would use your intermittent fasting to try to eat during the waking hours that are common between your shift and your normal day. That way, you're tying the circadian rhythm of your digestion to your sleeping and waking cycle. What really throws off your sleep cycle is eating at all kinds of different times. So your body's eating at 2 o'clock in the morning one day, it's eating at 9 a.m. the next day, it's eating at 2 in the afternoon the following day. So it doesn't really have time to get back into that cycle.
Any supplements to help with that? I mean, would they...
Well, supplements are an absolute must. The other thing you can do is you can use your magnesiums and your sleep formulas when you're actually going into sleep. I actually would also do breath work within 30 minutes of waking, 3 rounds of 30 breaths. The reason why I would do that, you can also expose your skin to sunlight and expose your eyes to sunlight when you wake up. Even if you wake up in the middle or late afternoon, make one of the first things you do exposure to natural light. So your body knows this is my time to wake up. You see, our bodies crave routine. We have a biometric clock. We have a biorhythm, right? We have a circadian rhythm. So when you can't control your sleep and wake cycle, control your habits around your sleep and wake cycle. So first 30 minutes of the day, if you're doing breath work, getting sunlight, maybe touching the surface of the earth, the first 30 minutes doesn't have to be the same time every day. It just has to be within 30 minutes of when you wake up.
What's the best way to lower blood pressure naturally?
So this is a dicey one. I want to just reiterate, I'm not a physician, so I'm not licensed to practice medicine. I'm certainly not telling anybody listening to this podcast to stop taking blood pressure medication. You should seek the advice of your doctor if you're going to do that. However, there is lots of evidence that elevated homocysteine, which causes vascular constriction, can drive pressure up. We know that 85% of all hypertensive diagnoses, meaning what we call primary hypertension or essential hypertension, these diagnoses are 85% of the time idiopathic, meaning of unknown origin. So if we don't know the origin, why are we medicating the heart for a crime we cannot prove it's committing? I mean, I generally take an issue with that just on its surface. But supplements like trimethylglycine have been shown in our clinic system certainly to lower homocysteine levels. We've taken people from the very high double digits into the low single digits. I'm a huge fan of trimethylglycine. I'm also a big fan of methylfolate and methylated multivitamins to help with the other issues related to blood pressure. There's also been some recent research linking resveratrol and its ability to restore vascular laxity, which also widens the pipes and decreases the pressure. But if you're on blood pressure medication, before you touch your dosage, please seek the advice of your doctor.
Also, tell the examples of how many people we've had come to us where they were on heavy amounts of blood pressure medication, then they start on the methylated vitamin, the 10X Optimized, for example, and then they call us and they feel dizzy and they don't understand what's going on.
And they become hyposystolic. Yeah. In other words, what happens is when your blood pressure is high, blood pressure medication can make it normal. When your blood pressure is normal, it can push it low. It can make you hyposystolic and can actually push your blood pressure down. And so we've seen this a lot in our clinic system. We've seen about 150,000 patients come through. Not all of them had high blood pressure by any means, but we've seen about 150,000 patients in the last 10 years. And certainly there have been a number of patients that our clinical team has been treating, and they all of a sudden say they started to taking the vitamins, the methylfolates, the trimethylglycines, the B complexes, and they actually started to get a little woozy in the mornings. And I remember one of our physicians saying, "That's a great sign." Yeah. And the great sign is because that means your blood pressure is probably normalizing.
Exactly.
And that's the time to go back to your doctor, have your blood pressure checked, and see if you can lower or get off your medication.
Yeah, titrate down. Okay, I've been on the carnivore diet for 9 months. I'm down 50 pounds, but my PSA numbers jumped from 0.97 to 2.54. Is it related? And is there a way to lower this naturally?
So interestingly, make sure first of all that you're not eating processed meats. A lot of times, there's dirty diets for every kind of dogmatic diet. There is dirty keto. You could eat high in seed oils. You could eat high in processed cheeses and still be keto. You could eat a vegan or vegetarian diet, not eating a lot of organic sourced produce, and you could get high amounts of glyphosates, herbicides, insecticides, pesticides, preservatives, and that diet could end up being not healthy for you. Carnivore is the same thing. Try to get the grass-fed, grass-finished meats. Try to eat the pasture-raised eggs, not just the cage-free or organic, but pasture-raised. Seek the chickens that are free-range chickens that are antibiotic and hormone-free, because very often it's not the food, it's the distance from the food to the table that harms us. The food starts out great, and by the time it makes it to our table, it has all of these pro-inflammatory compounds. Also, make sure that you have any kind of processed meats, especially the high nitrate meats, out of your diet. If your PSA spiked all of a sudden, that's actually an indication that it's not cancer. Generally, it's an indication that it's something called BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia, or prostatitis, which is an acute infection of the prostate, which may require antibiotics. But generally, the supplements that we have seen in our clinic system that have lowered PSA have been those kinds of silica clay binders, the gut binders like the activated charcoals, and then also the liquid turmeric and curcumin. That seems to work almost immediately to bring down slightly elevated PSA levels.
That's
if it continues to rise, definitely see your urologist.
Yeah, for sure. And keep an eye on it with regular labs.
Mm-hmm.
I've been recently told that I am in another perimenopause question. What foods, supplements, tests, etc. would you recommend? We kind of went over the testing.
So let's go into the foods a little bit. Of course, it sounds like I say this every time somebody asks a question about foods, but truly highly processed foods can aggravate hormonal levels. We also do put a lot of hormone disrupting chemicals on our skin. You wouldn't believe in an average day how many times somebody applies a hormone disrupting chemical or eats a hormone disrupting chemical that they're unaware of. Everything from our shampoos and our hairsprays to our lotions and our makeups very often have hormonally disruptive compounds in them. And a good thing to do would be to try to go as natural and organic and clean as you can on everything that's touching your body. I don't want you to go psycho and be neurotic about it, but clean up your water, begin to filter your water, eliminate processed foods from your diet. These will definitely exacerbate your hormonal symptoms. Get a full hormone panel done, eat a whole foods diet, really try to regulate your sleep, supplement for the deficiencies that you have, not just the sake of supplementing, and then seek the advice of a qualified OBGYN, like someone in our clinic system that you can do at no cost. I hate to keep just plugging our clinical team, but they're very good at these perimenopausal symptoms. But if you're not going to seek the advice of a doctor, those are really good ways to start, vitamin D3 supplementation, omega-3 fatty acid supplementation to try to control some of those hormonal swings.
Okay. Next is my son has asthma and doctors keep wanting to increase his doses of steroids. Is there something that we can do naturally?
Very often we've seen a lot of asthmatic children that have high levels of resting inflammatory compounds, elevated levels of C-reactive protein, elevated levels of homocysteine. Some have something called mast cell activation syndrome, which is hyperexcited mast cells, which create histamines. So these children are very often walking around at a 6. So in other words, they're not starting at a 0 or a 1 from an inflammatory perspective. They're walking around at a 6. And then they have a normal allergic insult. They get a little bit of pollen, hay fever, ragweed, what have you, exhaust, and all of a sudden they're having an asthmatic attack. Really, the asthmatic attack was only a short move in their inflammatory reaction, but because they are already in a pre-inflamed state, they had a heightened reaction. So a great place to start would be food allergies and food sensitivities. There's a test called a KMBO test. Stool testing for the gut microbiome, so we can clean up their microbiome, so we can lower the level of inflammation, and blood tests to look at things like C-reactive protein and homocysteine to see if those might be underlying causes of an elevated state of inflammation.
Okay, here's one that I actually personally need to know about. Unfortunately.
You get pillow talk with me every night, babe.
I know, that's
you didn't
true.
ask
I
me
don't
this?
know why I haven't asked you. I'm surprised you actually haven't pointed it out. What causes varicose veins?
Wow. Varicose veins are...
Probably what I'm doing right now, sitting cross-legged.
It's actually not the pressure on the legs that does it. Varicose veins are actually a breakdown in the valves inside the vein. When blood is pumped through a vein, there's a one-way valve in the vein, and the blood goes through, and it doesn't go backwards because these valves close. Same thing that creates male erections. The blood goes into the corpus spongiosum, corpus cavernosum. These valves allow the blood in, then they close, and they don't let the blood back out. And so when you have valvular insufficiency, the blood begins to flow backwards, it pulls, and then the veins enlarge, it breaks down the wall of the vein, and they start to become visible. Not a lot you can do for the visible varicose veins, but to stop them from promulgating, you can definitely improve your intake of vitamin D3. Exercise is actually excellent. Walking is excellent for varicose veins. Remember, you want to just keep the blood moving, raising your legs at night above the level of your heart, just propping your legs up on a pillow, using compression gear, which you could buy online, to actually drain the lymphatic fluid and the fluid from the lower part of the veins. One of the reasons why we usually tend to get them in the legs is because we spend prolonged time standing. So if you change positions a lot, this is actually really good for varicose veins.
Any way to get rid of it once it's there?
There are laser procedures and things you can do, but no supplements that I'm personally aware of that actually get rid of varicose veins. If you have some ideas on how to get rid of varicose veins with supplementation, I would love to know. I just haven't seen them in my journey.
Let me know.
No, there's some great
there's
some great laser procedures that do it. There are even vascular surgeons that will remove varicose veins when they get really, really bad. I mean, prolonged varicosities in the major venous supply can be very problematic. One of the reasons why they tell you not to, sit on flights for too long and get up and walk around. If you know me, I'm a jackrabbit on planes.
No.
If I'm in first class, I'll use the bathroom in the back of the plane, then I'll walk to the front of the plane or walk to the back of the plane. I'll get up and move a lot. We actually, sadly, I actually did 30 minutes of CPR on a gentleman that sat near us on a flight coming back from Dubai, didn't get out of his seat for 15 hours, according to the flight steward, and unfortunately had what I assume he went down next to us in the baggage claim, but these deep vein thromboses that can actually occur from blood pooling and potentially even clotting in the lower extremities on flights, which is why I really recommend people use compression gear.
I was going to say, what does that do to help the compression socks?
It just helps the heart get the blood flow back to. Remember that the veins, the arterial system is pushing the blood into the tissues, then it flows from the tissues into the vascular supply and gets back to the heart. And so when you're sitting and there's not a lot of muscular contraction helping that blood flow return to the heart, blood has a tendency to pull. So sitting or standing for prolonged periods of time is not good for varicose veins. Taking the pressure off of that vascular system by getting your legs above the level of the heart, using compression gear, even actually looking at your hormonal levels, specifically iron deficiency anemia, are ways to make them appear less frequently or maybe stop them from appearing at all. But I'm only aware of laser and other procedures to address them once they're there.
Okay, there's a word in here that I can't pronounce.
Okay, sound it out.
Okay, you said this was activated charcoal, I think. I've been told to take... I'm not even going to try. You said it earlier.
Oh, diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth.
It's a clay, like an activated charcoal for anxiety and depression. This is true? I don't personally, know of the research of diatomaceous earth or activated charcoals and their direct relationship to anxiety. Anxiety is related to elevated catecholamines, which are fight or flight neurotransmitters. That's why I really recommend that people that suffer from anxiety get that genetic test.
Yes.
And maybe find out if they have the COMT gene mutation, the catechol O-methyltransferase gene mutation, because that can often lead them to be slow metabolizers of catecholamines. We call it slow COMT. Or the warrior gene, not the warrior gene. And as those catecholamines rise, they have a tendency to have increased levels of anxiety and anxiousness, as I know you well know. Diatomaceous earth, silica clay, binders, activated charcoal, these are things that actually soak up histamines in the gut. They actually will bind to compounds in the gut. They're great to take anyway. I wouldn't personally see any harm in trying to take diatomaceous earth, which is like a clay compound, an activated charcoal, or another type of binder as a way to lower the histamine response, which may indirectly be related to anxiety.
Yeah, I've never tried that
one more.
We got one more question. Okay. I have celiac disease. Is this reversible?
So celiac disease is a true allergy, heightened sensitivity to gluten. These people cannot be exposed to gluten at all. They can't even eat in restaurants that prepare foods that are not gluten-free. They can't share the same pans. But yes, we're going to actually talk about this during our gut cleanse protocol. That celiac disease, diverticulitis, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome, all of these inflammatory conditions of the gut can be dramatically helped by healing and sealing and reducing the histamine level in the gut and going after the potential compounds that are causing the issue. Crohn's disease, for example, very often it's leaky gut. It's bacterial contents exiting the luminal wall of the intestine and being in an area they're not supposed to be, calling the immune system to that site. Crohn's disease, celiac disease, on the other hand, where you actually have a true sensitivity to gluten, getting gluten out of your diet and continuing to bathe the gut in healthy probiotics, using a lot of fermented vegetables, which actually not only give you fiber, they give you both the soluble and the insoluble fiber. The insoluble fiber becomes free fatty acids, which are great for any of these inflammatory bowel conditions.
Yeah, I have a cousin who discovered she had celiac years ago before anybody before our family understood what it was. And I mean, just the journey, there was not a whole lot of information about it. I feel
if they didn't know about gluten.
Oh my gosh. And it's the one thing that so many people are confused by is it's not a gluten, like you said, it's not just a gluten intolerance or a sensitivity to gluten. It is truly, it's a serious, serious gluten allergy. And once she figured it out, she's good. But like you said, going out to eat is a nightmare. And, you can't share same bowls and pans.
Yeah, we're going to take a deep dive into these on our gut challenge. We're going to bring some really good bariatric and gut-related physicians onto the challenge. Again, it's completely free, so look forward to signing up for that in October.
Yay. All right, well, you're done. That's it.
Awesome. Great, babe.
Yeah.
Next time, if you have questions, ask me when we go to sleep.
I will. In bed, I will. Well, or just do it right here, and then everybody else can know what I'm dealing with.
And as always, guys, that's just science.